Hi there dear friends, welcome to today's video. We are going to discuss about Edith Stein's concept of empathy. When Edith Stein died in a gas chamber at Auschwitz in August 1942, the 20th century lost a most remarkable woman. At various times, she was an Orthodox Jew, atheist, philosopher, convert to Catholicism, teacher at a girls' school, university lecturer, contemplative nun and finally, a martyr with her Jewish people in the Holocaust. She searched for truth, and finding it in Jesus Christ and His Church, she bore witness to this truth in her life, writings and death. This presentation briefly sketches Edith Stein's life and her contributions. Edith Stein was born on the 12th of October 1891 into a Jewish family in Breslau, Germany. Having graduated first in her class in the Abitur in 1911, Stein entered the University of Breslau to study psychology. Professor Georg Moskowitz introduced her to Husserl's logical investigations and remarked that in Göttingen the students philosophize day and night and talk only of the phenomenon. Inspired, she transferred to Göttingen in 1913. There she became an active member of the Göttingen Philosophical Society. In Göttingen she also attended Schiller's lectures, which left a deep impression. Her enthusiasm was such that friends composed this couplet: "While other girls dream of kisses, Husserl is what Edith wishes." This was true. Edith was a solitary soul totally consumed by her search for truth. She completed her thesis in summer 1916 and graduated summa cum laude for her dissertation, Das Einfühlungsproblem in seiner historischen Entwicklung und in phänomenologischer Betrachtung. The empathy problem as it developed historically and considered phenomenologically, part of which was published as Zum Problem der Einfühlung. She then worked as Husserl's first paid assistant from October 1916 until February 1918, when she resigned in frustration with his working methods. Her works include On the Problem of Empathy, doctoral dissertation, 1917, Finite and Eternal Being, An Attempt to an Ascent to the Meaning of Being, postdoctoral dissertation, 1935, The Science of the Cross, 1942, Essays on Woman, Frauen, 1950, The Hidden Life, Essays, Meditations, Spiritual Texts, 1952, etc. Stein was a realist phenomenologist and she is known philosophically primarily for her phenomenological work on empathy and affectivity. Her work contains original approaches to empathy, embodiment, emotions, personhood, collective intentionality, and the nature of the state. In her later work, Stein developed an original philosophy of being and essence that integrated Husserlian phenomenology and Thomist metaphysics, and it's called Finite and Eternal Being. Edith was deeply influenced by the tumultuous social and political context of her era, World War I and Nazi ideology, and by philosophers like Edmund Husserl, Max Scheler and St. Thomas Aquinas. Edmund Husserl, her master, said of his beloved student Stein, "I don't believe that the Church has any neo-scholastics of Edith Stein's caliber." The term empathy is used in a variety of disciplines, and it is often misused in everyday language. It evolved into several forms over the years and in many contexts. She argued that empathy is the basic feeling of foreign consciousness in general. Unlike some contemporary views, Stein's theory does not involve simulating or reasoning one's way into another person's situation. Instead, empathy is a direct perception of another person's subjectivity, without having the same content or feelings. Stein sees empathy as the basis for intersubjective experience, helping us recognize others as persons rather than objects. She distinguishes empathy from imagination, memory, and expectation, as it involves experiencing another person's feelings as non-primordial content originating outside oneself. Empathy, according to Stein, allows us to perceive the radical otherness of another's subjectivity. The German word Stein uses to denote her notion of empathy is Einfühlung. Einfühlung is derived from the Greek word empathia, which is a combination of two words, em meaning in, or into, and panthos, meaning feeling. The word empathy is actually quite new in both English and in German. It entered the English language by way of the German in the early 20th century, when psychologist Edward Titchener used it to translate the German word Einfühlung, which means feeling into. When I experience another consciousness, I am empathizing. That does not mean that I have to have the same content, the same feelings, the same thoughts, the same fantasies that the other person has in the moment that I am empathizing with them. We have no awareness of empathy in outer sense. There is an analogy here with the ungiven sides of some object that we may be perceiving. Stein develops her theory of empathy by making use of the concepts of primordiality and non-primordiality. Primordial experiences means direct engagement with the present moment, unmediated apprehension without mental constructs, unique to empathy as a form of direct perception. Non-primordial experiences, on the other hand, involves mediation and representation, pertains to past, future, or mental constructs, content not directly accessible through immediate perception. The role in empathic experiences, crucial in understanding nature and distinction from other cognitive experiences, highlights empathy as direct perception versus mediated cognitive processes. Empathy is not a matter of really putting oneself in the other's shoes. Instead, it is a matter of the felt sense of friction between one's subjectivity and that of the other, and that then provides the basis for more sophisticated forms of interacting with others. So even if a person feels the other's pain and empathy, he feels it as others, not as his. And then the question might arise that how do a person feel another's pain without feeling it as his own? And Stein says there is a difference between primordial content of an experience and non-primordial content. Everything that we experience is experienced primordially, but not every experience has primordial content. Stein says that the subject of empathized experience is not the subject empathizing, but another that is the person empathized with. From Stein's viewpoint, the central aspect of the empathetic encounter does not revolve around the person who is actively engaging in empathy, but rather it centers on the person with whom the empathizer is establishing a connection. Stein writes, "While I am living in the other's joy, I do not feel primordial joy. It does not issue live from my eye. This means that I do not have the same content primordially. Since I do not need to feel primordial joy in order to empathize with the person who is feeling joy." Let us consider an example. Suppose I am at a drama with a friend and she is loving it and I am not really interested in it, but I really love that person. I can be happy for her. But I am not going to imagine that it is me who is the one enjoying the drama. I am still thinking like, when is this going to be over? She suggests 4 ways to practice empathy. 1. Get out of your own head. To understand another person, we have to get out of our own minds and transcend our internal drama. Empathy is, among other things, a way of learning to appreciate foreign experiences. In the same way that travel broadens the mind, so too does looking at the face of another person and glimpsing another beautiful, mysterious, unique mind. 2. Notice others. To be empathetic, we actually need to notice other people. Paying attention is the ability to be totally present to another person with no distraction. This means that when I speak to a friend, I shouldn't be merely waiting my turn to speak about what I actually want to talk about. I should be listening to that person and putting my own agenda on the back burner. 3. Practice love. By love, she means the habit of willingness to sacrifice our own needs out of a desire to promote the happiness of others. In short, it's a genuine relationship in which each person thinks of the other first. 4. See persons, not labels. According to Stein, it's much easier to write someone off and dismiss his motives and feelings if we have labeled him as part of a crowd. For instance, it's no problem at all to lack empathy for a political party, or rival team, ethnic group, or religion. This nameless, faceless crowd can be dismissed without ever having to confront that it's made up of real live human beings who deserve our empathy, even if we don't end up agreeing with them. It's much harder to ignore a person with a name, an individual with a unique face and personality. A person is more than the sum of the parts, and as a community of persons, we each find our own place in it only by interacting with and understanding other individuals. The more open we are to acknowledging how special each person is, the more empathetic we will be in our interactions. Stein says, empathy is a feeling of being touched by and following in the footsteps of the feeling of the other person.